Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I am delighted on behalf of the French Institute of Tel Aviv, the Goethe-Institut in Israel, the Austrian Cultural Forum, and the Polish Institute in Tel Aviv, and all our partners to open the Night of Philosophy in Tel Aviv 2021. We are extremely proud of holding this event in the troubled circumstances we have had to endure over the past year. It was particularly tedious to coordinate this event, and I would wish here to express my undivided gratitude to all of our partners for their excellent support in the planning of this event. We have succeeded in coordinating an excellent event despite these difficulties, and this is largely due to the tireless work and efforts of our partners in this coordination. The Night of Philosophy in Tel Aviv this year is truly an international event, as it is being followed by thousands across our globe. This is, for myself, a great chance for us all to pose the necessary and urgent questions of our time and our epoch. I want to make a call to all here present or who will be during this event to not hesitate to question, to bring forth your critical and constructive analysis, to risk innovative ideas and directions. We need philosophy today. We need to construct together a world for our humanity, which will courageously look unto its past and tackle its future with resolve and renewed energy. In this sense, I want to call on to all the democratic voices who will join us this Night of Philosophy to help us all in this construction. This is the true reason for this event, and I believe the true essence of the Night of Philosophy in Tel Aviv. In this spirit, I am particularly honored to welcome to our Night of Philosophy in Tel Aviv a dear friend of mine, if I may say, Professor Hélène Cixous. To present this internationally recognized author and playwright would be quite misplaced. However, I want nonetheless to express my utmost gratitude to Hélène Cixous, one of the most important European intellectual figures today, for having accepted our invitation and to deliver the opening lecture of this year's Night of Philosophy. It is not only an honor for us to welcome Hélène Cixous' words in this event, it is also, and I say it without any reserve, a profound desire for us all to receive from Hélène Cixous this evening her always careful and purposeful insight. Profound desire for us all, I would even say, and in the face of the multitude of questions we are confronting in our present day, a deep-seated necessity. Our world needs voices and words like Hélène Cixous. Thank you, Hélène Cixous, dear friend, for being with us today. Without any further wait, I give the floor over to Hélène Cixous for her lecture entitled, The Cat and the Castle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you, all friends, unknown, invisible, but I feel close. It's a strange pleasure. It's an unexpected and strange pleasure to teletalk to you from the far near. So let's make as if we're meeting in the chateau of philosophy called deconstruction. This is going to look like a little fable, but it's pure reality and truth. It happens with the main characters, a cat and a castle. Once I was asked recently, what was the daily life of deconstruction? So let's try and give a little answer, a shy answer. Hearing about that, you know, I was really at a loss because Montaigne has already said it all. What deconstruction is daily life. Deconstruction is daily life. It's breath. It's the extraordinary ordinary, and vice versa. Every day, says Kafka, it's a question of living and not dying, which can be understood actively or passively. Now, we'll travel through time, which we do all the time, particularly now, through time, if there is time. I don't even know whether there's time left. Now, when Derrida writes, finally, actually in 2000, this question, this sentence, when to die finally? When he does that, it's that having had enough of dying every day, he said to himself, well, isn't it time to live in the end? But what does that mean in the end? In the morning, early in the morning, around 6, let's say, he would say, quoi de neuf? What's new? And with these words, deconstruction had begun. Is the new new? In what way is it new? And for how long? Everything is always more or less new, newer than the last time, the time to age. What is going to happen to us? Everything keeps on happening, everything we didn't expect, of course, which we would never have thought of, which we had never yet thought of, which he has never thought of. What, for example, a virus? Yeah. A cat, or a sentence, an enigma, if you will. To keep what was happening from passing away, and that happened, deconstruction happened in a daily way for 40 years, I would stretch out the net of a notebook, every year notebook. When did the cat who should be here, but who was probably annoyed with our technical problems, when did the cat arrive? It was in 1994. And since then, I cannot imagine living without a cat. So let's follow the cat. She leads us with a leap to 1995. The cat is a she. What were we doing in those months deconstructively? Every day we would think, we were thinking. Every day we were thinking about thinking. And from an early hour, we got to it. On the telephone, this thinking is played by two. Each one of us two is asking her or himself, so is asking the other, as Jacques Derrida recalls, what to think about during the day. We have thought obligations waiting, pending, and thereupon the day brings more than one unexpected subject for thought. I said, playing, this is the most seriously human work that awaits us. To play is to work with the pleasure of satisfying a vital appetite, a restless need. It's that every day we have to go about thinking the world and me and the me, both. The one by and because of the other. That's what we thought around 14,600 times, each time unique. My friend Jacques Derrida and I say, 14,610, says my son, with 10 leap years. I don't think that there were many days without communication. Playing at thinking, that is, thinking toward the other thought, thinking of the thought of the other, practicing thinking to think, sharpening, honing, polishing, appeasing. That's the daily life of friendship. The blade and the soul, l'âme Et l'âme of friendship, the edge, the thread, the line that doesn't attach, that continues bearing speech. As power of communication from soul to soul, friendship is the telephonic apparatus par excellence. Before the telephone was invented, we could telephone without a telephone. Let's just follow the example of Montaigne and La Boétie, who would telelove. Friendship appoints, appareil, pairs up, gets under sail, is expressed between like and like at 6 o'clock in the morning. We would say to each other, I was going to call you. We call before calling. We telephone before picking up the phone. We Zoom before Zooming, or we unzoom. Life works on the telephone by phone. And before the magic apparatus, we communicated by slow telephone, by mail, letter, correspondence, telepathy. We wrote to each other. We sowed the distance with the seeds of proximity. New species of words sprouted. We sowed with threads of texts. Every day, or almost, we will have written to one another by telephone. I should write a report on the effective, spiritual, and thus philosophical consequences of the technological evolution of the apparatus on our friendship. Do you hear me, Raphael?
Very well.
For example, the profound changes that came about in the lives of the friendship upon the arrival of the answering machine. The distant past suddenly opens up like a new chasm. It's the daily secret that takes a hit. The immediate present is no longer assured. In its place, a preserved present, put in a box. Now, the voice finds itself locked up in a cage. It remains fresh for an uncertain time, let's say 2 or 3 days. One day, it dries up like a rose. It loses its scent, its colors. It imitates itself. In time, it's struck by silence. It's like dried water. Do you know about the telephone? The telephone, not the telephone, the telephone is also a kind of cat. It's called answer. Soon, says Derrida prophetically, we'll have a televisual telephone. In a few years, we won't see that. That's terrible. No one will be able to lie any longer, dissimulate, drag around in pajamas, or on the contrary, they will drag. You got used to the facts. You got used to the answering machine. You doubtless know from Benveniste the etymology of this prince of words, answer. Answer has the same root as swear. There is oath in the response. Each time I pick up the telephone, without a word, I swear I am there. Mots, words. There is not only the telephone and its numerous corollaries that stir up and displace everyday life. There is the sudden appearance of words that fly between the thought players or interwoven friends, beat their colorful wings, enigmas of charm, handfuls of sonorous pearls, intelligent jewels. They come from very far away. No, neither fatigue nor death. Friends exchange them like rings. Once I was sent the word anecdote. When it enters, I see it dressed in bright red and then white. A dress chic. What to say about it? I won't be able. Anecdote is to me a visitor as strange as syncope. Remember? The lady with a feather adorned hat, wearing long gloves. as she is to Kafka. Well, nothing for me is anecdotal. Everything signs, makes a sign, and signifies. Nothing insignifies. Do you hear me? I hear you. There is no insignificance. As Joyce says, love me, love my umbrella. Everything leads from love to the umbrella and vice versa. Who says what? Or the formidable force of phonemes. Des phone M, the phones M, love. Or the laughter that leaps between the traits of the text, wild, however civil it seems to be. Who, how to say it, this syllable? I will tell you an anecdote. One day, Louise Bourgeois, you know about her, the great American artist, she fired such a shot of who at me over the telephone that I was thrown beside my chair like a dead body, like Dante tells it in his Infernal Adventures. This who she shot at me, that's a whole history. That happened in 2004. In reality, shall I tell you? Well, another time. I'll tell you another time about this shot of Louise Bourgeois. It was a who shot. Another who. Who? A pale face surrounded by heavy odorous furs. Her movements are shy and nervous. She uses quizzing glasses. Yes, a brief syllable, a brief laugh, a brief beat of the eyelids. That's in Giacomo Joyce. I wish I could ask Jacques Derrida at this moment, anecdote. Do you know her? But in this moment, the word telephone is out of order. It's towards 6 o'clock in the morning, as I said, that we would ask each other the question, what is and why at that hour, just before the end of the night, so rich in secrets, just on the threshold of the cave, before the bedazzlement, just on the edge, just almost, it's there, on the line of the blade of the interinstance, that we groped around the tip of our words, like this. Hello? Transcendental, what's that? Transcendental or transcendental? It's like Neanderthal. It's God within God, outside God, more God, no more God. Ah, yes, yes. Today, one doesn't say that anymore. One says transgender dental. At 6 o'clock in the morning, not day, not night, neither one nor the other, we used to laugh. Laughing is the delicious way of taking pleasure in not knowing. At the time when one sees one another by voice, one opens the windows and words enter, words mixed with unwords. Birds salute, wars break out, blood flows, heads roll. A condemned man receives his letter of execution for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, decapitation. We say mobile words to each other, surprise words, cat words. And that day, that Monday in 1994, the words arrived like kittens. They're there. You can't chase them away, like little creatures who don't go away, who get mixed up little by little. Then from now on, with all the blood of the soul, it's because there was destiny. Destiny is there long before it makes itself known. That day, in the year 405, there had arrived a word and a cat. So I'll tell you the tale of 1995. The word had its shadow. The cat was also a female cat. The day I'm talking about today, at the end of June. It was summer. You who read Derrida's books, you will recognize it. It was the summer of the cat and the château, Blanchot's château. In reality, take a cat and a château, a castle. Prenez un chat et un château. Combine, shake up the dice, throw. The result is innumerable. The chat and the château, the cat and the castle, had just arrived in our existences and later in texts, or conversely. One never knows who causes what. So it's a Monday. Derrida says, I'm working on the chat and the château. Je travaille sur le chat et le château, on the cat and the castle. In everything that I've rewritten on Blanchot, for on Blanchot, one doesn't write, one rewrites. The château and the word demeure have taken up an extraordinary place. The other, HC, says, and the château, is it a word or a cat? A cat word. It's 6 o'clock, cat time. It's the time for words. The château says, me, the château, first of all, castel, castle. From Latin, I castrate, I cut, separate, sever. Did you know that the château castrates? Derrida says, how is that going to be translated into English, into Hebrew? As for me, I didn't know, but my all-knowing language had thought of it. And here began a conversation about the beloved château, mine, Montaigne's château. A château, I say, is a form of non-theorized deconstruction, impossible to decide to what intention it corresponds. Must it open to the others or repel them? Who separates them from what or whom? Does the tower separate Montaigne's soul from the world? Or does it give on to the world? Is not the world in the tower? According to Pierre Ekem, the château is an army, a fortress, a warship. It's built on the idea of attack and exclusion. According to Pierre's son, Michel de Montaigne, the same château defends itself, refrains from being armed. It offers itself. The secret of its strength is in its opening to the other. According to Kafka, the château is determined to be Schloss, closed. Out with the stranger, neuter, or Burg, feminine. Montaigne's horse is called Job. The cat has the name of a young Roman woman. My cat on this particular Monday was called Thessalonica. Later, she will be called Philia, or also Aletheia. Nowadays, the cat is called Chaya or Isha. A cat dies only for a moment. No sooner departed, she comes back and transmits herself. The last time I saw Montaigne's cat, a couple of years ago, she was called Balzac. Some time had passed. That summer, she was a boy cat. As one knows, every cat is undecidable most of the time. Let's return to that Monday in 1995. Why did I choose that Monday among all the Mondays? I didn't choose. Fate decided things. The first Monday that goes by, one sends it a sign. Jacques Derrida never decided. He responded to signs. There is chance in sense. There is hidden sense in chance. So one says, How is that going to be translated into Hebrew, German, English? As always, with difficulty, with loss, noise, and recovery. The hour of words is also always the hour of translation, a tragedy of the soul, a rite of sacrifice. One cuts, bleeds, signs, sews up again, separates, trennt, sews up again, wounds, heals. I always say more about it than I think I'm saying. In me, language speaks before me, precedes me, denounces me, transports me over the centuries. Babel is its cat's name. In Blanchot's and in Derrida's text, later, the chateau goes away. In its place abides the word demeure in French. How is it going to translate? Demeure, 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 to die. This day, I'm talking about the word demeure assumes an extraordinary place in the existence and history of Derrida's thought. 1,000 years ago, it made its bed in the book of language. And since the year 10,050, 1050, says the learned dictionary, the word remains, lingers in life, doesn't die, survives, in the troubling vicinity of the phenomenon of lingering. In the word demeure, remain, Derrida makes his nest in French. It was time, it was late. The July day when Jacques Derrida welcomes demeure in his heart of hearts, according to me, HC doesn't know that it, the word, it or she or he, the demeure, and their cortege of magical and melancholic signifiers are from now on inscribed in the living text until the ultimate, as Kafka says. Doesn't know it, she doesn't know it, but senses it. The proof, this scene abides in his writing house, like an inextinguishable pilot light. Later, she, HC, will notice the entire web as what the destinies will have woven from many threads of chance and necessity. He says, that gives me a lot to think about, a lot. What happens between her, the cat, the newly born cat, and you? On one side, I have the feeling that she's becoming in her being, in her very essence, what she must be according to you. She's becoming attuned to you, a being who is you, who is me. She actually incarnates me, you, in her, as if we were sculpting her, as if we were giving her your essence that she bears naturally in herself. I was listening to the voice attentively, the way in which one intensively observes a cat speaking the language of signs. At other moments, it says, the voice of Derrida, I have the impression that she's the screen for your projections. She who? She is here, the girl cat, who is also a boy cat, who is a person, the principal character of this naturally philosophical day. She gives one to think. And between the two, there is a mystery. She becomes what you want, tolerate, think of her, as if she were cultivating herself on your psyche. It can happen like that only because it had already happened like that. In this season of human time, childhood, where all the seeds of the future germinate, she made her apparition, a synonym of deconstruction, what happens as impossible. I didn't want it. I didn't look for it. I didn't expect her. She fell on me from above like the god, like love, like night. I said, no, no. Yet she had already arrived, like a factor of disorder in my system of hospitality. No cat, like a foreign language, come to disturb my language. And my no said yes. If I accepted her, it's because she's the mystery of return, hidden under the appearance of apparition. She's a revenant of love. In the past, when already I loved her, she was a dog. She put death back into my life, trembling joy. Death, he said, the possibility of the impossible. It threatens me. It's going to brush past her, rub against her, escapes her. It's certain, his voice thinks, that between a cat who lives with you and you, there cannot not be a kind of mysterious link. Life itself, with absolute love, I love her, I live from her. Starting then, there is coexistence, cohabitation, sharing, as you do. There is an affective richness. All the animals, cat dogs, me, you, she, he, that day, the article in the French paper Le Monde, 1995, says we are descended from the squirrel. I say, I knew it. As an ape, he says, I have always worshipped the squirrel. I look for our ancestors in the trees. I look for signs. Signs are flying singes, anagrammatically, monkeys, in the branches of phrases. I see your thought advance by leaps, raised up on its paws, passing with a stroke of genius from earth to earth to air, and going to plant itself in imagination on the edge of the moon, like that of Kepler. Like Montaigne in his library, bringing the sky back beneath his feet, with the help of animal friends. I have never felt that I was thinking as much as in front of the animal. Never have I felt so much I was dancing thought. Our ancestors in the trees and in bed, the box of our library. That is where it happens, says Montaigne. In front of an animal is where one must think multi-animally. If I have my time to begin or to refuse, she also has her time, as he says. When we telephone each other between night and day, it's the golden hour, the hour when Plato speaks with Montaigne, the hour when call and respond to each other, life and death, with human intelligence and wisdom, intelligence and animal wisdom. A cat essay of freedom. She ran away when someone walked towards her. Where is the cat right now? One cannot take her, she comes. Like you, like Albertine for Proust, she can only come. Come from leaving, come to leave, just left. In order to love her, leave her an infinite freedom. But I set a minuscule limit to sustain her life. Infinite exercise of aspiration to the infinite. One must have what one doesn't have, lightness. To be there all the time and never. Watch out to watch out. Often when I think of death, he says, of the disappearance of the self, I say to myself that as long as there is some living being to be a self, it's as if I wouldn't die. What comes to my mind is an animal. As long as there is a bird who will live, who will fly, there will be something in me that will continue to bear the life that I'm afraid to lose. One has to be two in order to think death, says Montaigne. Each time I die, two die. When you die, a me that is you dies, me who am you. When one of my me's dies, it may be that another abides. The first time I died, I was 6 years old. Some lives are as one with death. Some do nothing but die all their lives. De mourir, not die, undie, die almost every day is the destiny of Kafka, or the fate, or living with two me's in the same room, in the same bed. Me, the tall, thin young man, always still young, who frequents women and death. Some are born for this cohabitation. Some are posthumous. They haven't finished. Death stopped before they had finished their life. These are the field dead, or those condemned to be penning in one of the offices of death. Yesterday, there was a press conference of the International Parliament of Writers about Abu Jamal, says Derrida. I had to write a text of 7-8 pages urgently. You have to imagine it. An underground corridor, poorly lit, the remainder of the world, a tomb for the buried alive. You have to imagine the soul of those who go down living among the pre-dying, their poets. In 1829, Hugo survives and relives the last day of a condemned man. This year is the year of Abu Jamal, the year of AIDS. I write La Ville Parjure, the affair of the contaminated blood. There is virus everywhere, invisible worm in light. Some books are decided by a death sentence. As you know, Albertine is born always already dead from the death of Alfred Agostinelli. There is a strict relation between the history of the world and the history of the mortal. Everything will have begun to end for Derrida, the principal character of this report, on the daily life of deconstruction on the date of July the 20th. Starting at that instant, designated by Blanchot in his confidential letter to Derrida, as the instant of the beginning of dying, Derrida won't ever stop abiding. He advances abiding in abeyance, and he doesn't know that he's going with a glorious step toward a hidden end. One goes from one year to another while triumphing over death. Every day is the triumph of life. No one has ever seen, I was saying to myself, a hero of thought like Derrida speak so often in such a quotidian fashion of death, except Kafka. To die my death is a subject for Homer or Sophocles. Who knows whether Derrida is not, beneath the philosophical veil, a great Greek tragic poet. It was the 20th, one of the 20ths. I've decided that this number 20 is an anniversary. 20 will have been Derrida's number only because he shared it with Blanchot. I will not speak here about his numbers. There are so many encoded. This 20, is the cipher of dubbing, an alliance sworn among princes of the text. There it is, as if anointed and sacred. Signed with an amused and serious taste for cryptography and in all its moods. After all, it's willingly that our poet-philosopher will have sown encrypted traces in the whole immensity of his masterpieces. He hides, in other words, he keeps. Let's draw on the 20 July 20. We're in 1995. I received, he says, a letter reflecting on the brevity of life. At the end, the writer says to me, eternal return, in which I do not believe, and in which I would very much like to believe. Jacques Derrida does not know when the end of his world will come. it will always be too soon. He hopes to reach the year 2020. He's afraid he won't reach July the 20th. He complains about the brevity of life. One is always already the guest of death. One looks at oneself in the mirror looks at us. It's not the slow or regular aging, it's the brutal thing that comes from within that is scary. He never seemed so young. Time and its mysteries follow him like his shadow. A friend lends him a watch that works wondrously well. At night, one counts the hours. During the day, one counts the years. Some go quickly, others slowly. When to die, finally, when on July the 20th, 2000, the question is asked in the book of death penalties, it has been flitting about for years, tirelessly, for decades, centuries, this strange dove of anxiety beat its wings above a long deserted void, tired of the dying life, feeling 100 years old without time, feeling life, feeling on its ends like the condemned men, any condemned man, the one whose testamentary witness is Hugo, like Dostoevsky, like Kafka, who suffers 1,000 deaths, one after the other, in the pending supertemporal state of dying. Like everyone to die, condemned to die from death, living without life, dying without death. One philosophizes so as to learn to wait for the response. Each says to herself that only the posthumous ones like her do not await it. He, Derrida, says that he postulates. She says he postulates. What is a number? What is in a number? I was born on Thursday, February the 20th, 1948, from the death of my father. On January the 20th, 1778, Lenz crossed the mountain. Here began the splendor of morning. February the 20th was Purim. Enough of dying. Let's talk about pastries. Deconstruction is not just a woman passing by, tall, slim, in deep mourning, fugitive beauty that one will not see again except in eternity, elsewhere too late, never perhaps. You recognize Baudelaire's lady. She likes to eat. I say pastries, but not all of them, not insignificant pastries, delicious, initiated pastries, pastries of poppy seed and memory, that's Ceylon passing, pastries with a flavor that fascinates and makes you think of the celebrations of escapees, pastries to take delight in, like familiar poems, delicious poems, kneaded and baked by our mothers and grandmothers. The palace of the chateau where Esther sings and kneads pastries of time, the time sung in Céline's poem Corona, with its flavor of Jewish pastry, the mouth full of singing phonemes. One says to oneself, es ist Zeit, dass es Zeit wird. Purim, the spells, Derrida says. We ate white biscuit in Algiers. White biscuits? What's that? She says. For Purim, we ate Haman's Ohren, Haman's ears. It was Omi, my German grandmother, who officiated over the very edible ears. Eating ears, one has to eat well, he says. And he eats the ears letter by letter. Il faut bien manger. And they're carried off, enchanted, like one sees in the Bible and the Odyssey, by the mystery of the dish and the name of the dish, sitting at the same table, and meanwhile between them stretches the space of continents. It keeps growing larger. It happens so suddenly often. Then, by chance, a last of the Jews comes to meet a Jewess otherwise. And as Celan captures them in a photo text, the babblers, the gourmands, the children of brothers and sisters, here they are, tongue and mouth. They remember at length what they think from the tip of their lips and their teeth. Deconstruction is more than one language. Up there on the mountain where Klein and Gross philosophized the world, like Napoleon and Hegel in Jena, two young men in two tongues create the world to come. The stick is silent, the pen listens, the stone is silent, and the silence is not a silence, it's the breath of the vision. You came here from afar. Each one has come from his afar to write here. Those babblers. Even now, tongues tied and lips sealed tight, they have something to say. Well, let them talk. You came from far away, came here. So I did. I came like you. You do know what you see. The earth has folded up here, folded over once, then twice, then three times, and split open in the middle. And in the middle, there is water. The water is green, the green is white, and the white comes from still further on high, comes from the glaciers, one could say, but shouldn't. But this is a language from the here and now. The green with the white within, the language for neither you nor me. Deconstruction is what comes about. What comes about, or who comes as impossible. It must come as impossible. You eat the ears of death. I'm going to tell you a secret. I am J. Don't tell anyone. How is your name written? Your name, the other. Your other name for the same other. At home, says Derrida, they are called white biscuits. At home, she says, they are called Hammondsohren. They have the same taste and not the same syllables. At home is not at home. At home is on the mood, on the move. At home is up there in the heart's kitchen. My mother was called Esther, my mother in secret, queen of eating seeds in secret. I am... Don't tell anyone, he says. Deconstruction is life that comes about as impossible. Strength is hidden beneath a name. You dust the ear with a veil of sugar and you sprinkle poppy seeds. Your Ashkenazi pastry, my Sephardic pastry, everything is otherwise. Everything is otherwise. What does one talk about in secret, in the secret of the familiar, in the course of the strange world of what does one talk about in the 20th century, about the next 20 years so far away? Meanwhile, at the foot of the table, the chasms of the world growl, and in the avenues of the great countries, stores and tombs open and close again. Every day, like Klein and Gross, one naturally talks family. So naturally, one speaks Jews, little Jews, big Jews, white Jews, black Jews. Jew, believe me, quarter Jew, Jew and a half. What is Jewry? What is Jewish? Inclusive Jew. Jew is included, excluded. Jewish then quite otherwise. One slips away. One lives oneself. One Jew wishes one Jew. One practices the fourth da. One subtracts and multiplies 7 times Jew with faith or without faith. Derrida and Cixous, Gross says to Klein, your mother is so familiar, so foreign, so German. Are you sure she's Jewish? And each of them looks at the mother with curiosity, following which, let's look at the cats, Jew cats. Now, this conversation always takes place as the sun rises or sets, like one breathes, it's ordinary, it's living gold, the money exchanged. As soon as these or those on a narrow road between mountains and chasms, with the sea rising up to the edge of the cliff, pick up the telephone and take up their dialogue exactly where they had left it pending the day before. From there, we speak of potencies and powers every day. We don't lose sight of time. Time that passes in front of the windows, like in front of the young Hegel passes the soul of the world, die Weltseele, Napoleon, followed by armies and empires, riding on one of his 300 little horses, like Montaigne on his little horse. Will we survive? How annoying, cruel, stupid, hateful, unworthy humanity is. How surprising is humanity's beauty, invention, how it triumphs over death when one has lost all hope. Each time wavering on the edge of the circle of hell, one wonders what to do. What to do? Do. Do what one can. Think with all one's might what is still but nameless Magba. Go into the streets, cry out, be silent, write, welcome, take fragments of ruins, save the remainders, say words, into which one must be able to breathe a little force of emotion. Respond poetically, philosophically, humbly, to the barkings of the destructive demons. Ants that we are, fighting ants and witness ants, citizens of the earth. The cries of ants, who will hear us? Well, sometimes we're heard. For instance, they have not executed Abu Jamal. It's August the 7th, 1995. Let's go back to work. They have a reprieve from execution. They are impervious to pressure, Derrida says. One could count on the calculation of the risks of a black explosion, terrible outbursts. It's an argument that weighs much more heavily than all the demonstrations that have taken place in the world, he said in 1995. These were the last pages of my 1995 notebook. What is good about a true notebook is that it's entirely written by the unforeseen, welcoming to the event. Now, I had just written Savoir without knowing where this apparent exit from blindness would lead us. Later, H came to remark that one endlessly exits one cave only to find oneself in another blindness to explore and deconstruct. But in the year 95, she believed she had reached the light. On November the 4th, Derrida had a reminiscence. That's how he designed the evocation of a unique, absolute and forgotten experience. He remembered a young man, that was he. It was not a memory, it was an epiphany. According to H, this event belonged to that kind of moment that Kafka called apparent death. The apparent dead one, when he returns from his disappearance, cannot form a story from this experience, for it took place outside of time and outside of self. Alone abides the mist of a trace of it. Now, the young man, Derrida, in the instant before his disappearance, was coming out of the football stadium in Algiers in the year 1948. He disappeared all of a sudden. He was struck with nothingness. According to me, Derrida didn't see any relation between this extraordinary death and the one Maurice Blanchot called the instant of my death in 1994. November the 5th, 95, it happened that Rabin was killed, testifies the notebook on page 58. It would take a chapter to describe the manner in which such an assassination happens to us, to certain among us, to the entire world. An assassination that explodes and then continues to poison and wound peoples and universes for generations. For weeks, there had been calls for death. God alone knows what that forebodes. This blood is not going to interrupt the peace process. This blood is not going to interrupt the relentlessness of death. There's celebration, not only by the extremists. There are symmetries. The assassination of Sadat or of Boudiaf. Were we when we shook Arafat's hand? That's when peace began to be pushed toward the condemnation to death. November 5, Derrida writes a text for Deleuze. He threw himself out of the window. From time to time, we had indirect news. It's so hard. Blows that leave you gasping for breath. A tragedy of breath. It's an enormous history made up of many stories of friendship and philosophy. There had never been between Deleuze and Derrida any mini aggression. He, always refrained, D or D. There were camps, wars, hostilities, a man for peace. Between us, Deleuze and me, there was a simple story of friendship woven of texts and signifiers, never threatened, discreet smiles, visits to the castles of madness. The day when, after a visit to Laborde Hospital, he explains, "As for me, I detest madness." Well, I thought you loved them. We watched the funeral until 3 o'clock in the morning. Rabin, among all the things one can tell oneself, there is this extraordinary phenomenon that except for the funeral of a president of the United States, for no funeral of any assassinated president in the world, can one imagine anything as planetary. Prayers, speeches, burial, his name is Isaac. I will not speak here today of what we said about France or about French Jews. I preferred to weep. Why did he throw himself out of a window? Empedocles threw himself toward the bottom. There are two types of hypotheses. One is that he had no other means at his disposal. The other, it's a profound phantasm to kill oneself like that, an archaic desire, which Derrida says I'm ignorant of. I flee even the image. So terrifying is it. On the last page of the notebook, November the 7th, nothing had happened. I'm writing these lines in 2021. Mumia Jamal is still alive. He's still on the death rows, the corridors of death. Life in death or death in life? He still hopes to go home. It occurs to me that he will have spent his whole life deconstructing the prison bars.
I want to express on behalf of us all our extreme gratitude. What I believe is that your careful and instructive lecture is a very radical position, which I truly believe this is our necessity. We need these readings today, and I want to thank you very much beyond words, indeed, to call us into this position. We have decided not to engage in a discussion or in a Q&A, although the demand is immense. Would you like to take maybe one or two questions, or we just end it here? I know it's a little brutal type of ending, but a lot of people would want to, ask me to if they can ask a question. So would you like to take one or two questions, dear Hélène?
If you think it's good, and if the question
Yes, we can
not a shot, you know.
Sorry,
if the question is not a shot, as in the story,
yeah.
I can tell you that Louis Bourgeois shot at me on the telephone.
Well, Anat, I'm looking at you since you, Anat Asher, since you proposed. I'm sorry, I answered you that this won't be possible, and now I thought you would take a little more time for some reason.
But you know, I got half of the paper.
Yes, I know.
Suddenly I realized that time was running.
Okay. Oh, yes.
I had seen on the mail that we were allowed to have 30 minutes. So
yes, we were. It's true that we reserved just an hour, and it's exactly an hour. So I mean, I think unfortunately we'll have to end it here. So again, dear Hélène Cixous, I thank you very, very much, and for this wonderful lecture on behalf of everyone. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Raphael.
I welcome you all to join us at 7:30 Israel time and 6:30 French time for the beginning of the Night of Philosophy. And Hélène Cixous, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.